Let us study about control and coordination in humans as well as plants. So, in human beings, the control and coordination are performed by two systems. You have a nervous system and an endocrine system. In this chapter, we will study about these two systems. So, the nervous system can broadly be divided into a central nervous system and a peripheral nervous system. In this chapter, we need to study only about the central nervous system. So, the central nervous system consists mainly of the brain and the spinal cord. So, when coming on to the classification of the nervous system, you have a central nervous system and a peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system consisting of brain and spinal cord, and for the sake of completion, we talk about peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system consists mainly of the cranial and the spinal nerves along with the sympathetic and parasympathetic system, which we don't need to study in detail. So, when we study about central nervous system, the functional unit or the basic fundamental unit which we come across is the neurons. Neurons are the structural and the functional unit of nervous system. So, if you have any problem related with your brain or your head, mostly you visit a neurologist. So, remember the term neurons is associated with your nervous system. So, coming on to the structure of the neuron, of a typical neuron, it has a cell body. The cell body is similar to the cell, like it has the organelle, it has the nucleus, it has the mitochondria, and it has the organelle, other cell organelle as well. So, then from the cell body you can see a tree-like structure emerging. These are called dendrites. So, what do the dendrites do is that they take the impulses or the messages towards the cell body. Okay, remember dendrites take the impulses towards the cell body. Now, you can see an elongated structure which is called the axon. So, these axon, what do they do is they take the messages away from the cell body and facilitate communication with the neighboring neurons. So, you have a junction between two neurons, and this junction is called a synapse. Okay. So, then there are two types of neuron. You have a sensory neuron and a motor neuron. Sensory neuron takes your sensations, and motor neuron carry the messages for action. So, suppose you see a person. So, when you see a person, you are trying to recollect who the person is. So, there are certain cells in your eyes which sends the message to the brain, and in the brain the message is processed, and the brain, there are specific areas which identifies the person and gives the command to the respective organ. So, when you identify the person, you might say a hello, hi, etc. So, these commands are given by the motor neurons. The impulses are taken by the sensory neurons, and the command from the brain is taken by the motor neurons. So, these are basically the two types of neurons. Now, synapse, as I said, is a junction between two neurons. The function of synapse is to facilitate or to help in the transmission of impulses. Now, this is how the conduction happens. As I said, when you see a person or when you do any kind of activities, there are specialized area for each and everything inside your brain, and which gives the necessary command and the pathway. There is a pathway for that. From the eyes, the impulse is taken to the brain, it is processed there, and the action or the command for the action is given to the respective organ. Now, let us study about the human brain. Human brain is the most complex organ as well as the most important organ for all sorts of decision making. So, the human brain is the seat of your memory, intelligence, higher order thinking skills, etc. Now, when we study the structure of human brain, it can broadly be divided into three. The first is the forebrain, and then the midbrain, and lastly the hindbrain. Forebrain again consists of cerebral and thalamus. So, and coming on to the hindbrain has three important structures: pons, medulla and cerebellum. And the brain is embedded in a bony cavity called the cranium or skull. If I am to show you the skull in a replica of the skeleton, this part is called the skull, and the brain is embedded in this bony cavity called the cranium or the skull. So this is a cranial cavity, and the brain is placed inside this. Brain has different lobes, and all the lobes are comfortably seated inside the cranium. So the protection of the brain is added also by certain membranes called meninges, and also there is a fluid which gives the cushioning effect to the brain called the cerebrospinal fluid. Then if we have to study a little more about the forebrain, the forebrain is basically the thinking part of the brain. Forebrain can be divided, or as I said, it can be divided into cerebrum. The cerebrum consists of two hemispheres called the cerebral hemispheres. The cerebrum has specialized areas to receive the messages for visual signals and auditory signals. Auditory means hearing signals. So it is this part of the brain or the forebrain that has all the specialized areas for thinking as well as for your vision and also for auditory impulses. Coming on to the hindbrain part, hindbrain is mainly important for involuntary movements. When I say involuntary movements, it means movements which are not under your control, just like your heart beats, the process of digestion, there are movements taking place. So all these movements are not under your control. So these movements are basically controlled by the midbrain and the hindbrain. So the hindbrain, the most important structure which determines the posture is the cerebellum, and you have pons and medulla oblongata. These two work in coordination to control processes like respiration and digestion. Spinal cord is a long tube-like structure that begins from the brainstem, or you can rather say it's a continuation of the brain. So the function is to carry impulses, or it connects the brain with the rest of your body. The most important function of the spinal cord is that it facilitates or it helps in the reflex action. Now, what do you mean by reflex action? Reflex is anything that happens suddenly or spontaneously. So when you touch a flame, or when you accidentally dip your hand in hot water, you suddenly take your hand off from it. So in such circumstances, the signals are sent to your spinal cord, and it is your spinal cord that gives command to your hand to withdraw. Okay, so this happens. So in this special circumstance, the impulse doesn't reach the brain. It rather is controlled and coordinated by the spinal cord. So that is one important thing that you have to remember about the spinal cord. So this is a diagram of reflex action. So when you accidentally dip your hand in hot water, you just take it off. So this is mainly done by the spinal cord. Now why the signals are not sent to brain? Because it has happened as a process of evolution. So that is what is given in your textbook. The human brain is rather slow to take decisions. So you cannot wait for a long time so that your hand get burned. So in such circumstance, the spinal cord is way far ahead to take a decision and give command to the respective organs. So remember, spinal cord is associated with a reflex action, and reflex action is anything that happens suddenly or spontaneously. Now a little bit about cerebrospinal fluid. Your brain and spinal cord is protected by a fluid which is secreted from the brain itself. So these fluid gives a cushioning effect and it protects your brain and spinal cord from injuries. Now coming on to coordination in plants. In plants, they do not have a well-defined nervous system like human beings, or they do not have specialized cells like neurons to conduct impulses or send and receive messages. So how does coordination happens in plants? You must have noticed when you touch the plant mimosa, or locally known as the touch me not plant, the leaf or the entire plant droops. So why this happens? So this happens as a result of response of plant to a stimulus. So how this is happening, we will study. So in plants, you can classify the movement as directional and non-directional. So what are directional movements? Directional movements are those movements which occurs in the direction of a stimulus, and non-directional movement, which are also called nastic movements, they do not occur in response to a stimulus. So these directional movement happens only in one direction. It happens in the direction of stimulus. Whatever be the stimulus, it happens in that direction. And coming to non-directional movements, it can happen in any direction, and it may or may not be growth movements. Directional movements are mostly growth movements. So remember these things. There are two types of movements: directional movements and non-directional movement. Directional movement happens in the direction of a stimulus from the environment. Non-directional movement, it is not happening as a response to a stimuli, but rather it happens due to changes in certain conditions like temperature, humidity or pressure. Now when coming to tropic movements or the directional movements, there are basically 5 type of directional movement. Phototropism. First is the phototropism. You understand by the term photo. Photosynthesis is the term used to make food in presence of light. So the term photo is light. So here tropism is the movement towards light. Geotropism is the movement towards gravity. And hydro is the term associated with water, and it is a movement in response to water. Chemotropism is a movement in response to certain chemicals, and thigmotropism in response to touch. We will see examples. Tropic movement, you can see in the figure that the root of the plant, the shoot of the plant or the stem, it grows in the direction of the sunlight. So that is called phototropism. So they show positive phototropism, whereas roots grow downwards, so they show negative phototropism. No need to go much in detail, just remember phototropism is a movement towards light. And now geotropism, you can see the roots of the plant growing down. So these movements are called geotropic movements. Coming on to chemotropism. Chemotropism is in response to some chemicals. So in a plant, basically in a flowering plant, there is a female reproductive organ and a male reproductive organ. We will study in detail about in the coming chapters. So in this you can see the pollen tube. Pollen tube is basically the male part of the flower that grows towards the ovule or the female part, because this ovule secretes some chemicals. So it grows in the direction of the ovule. That is an example for chemotropism. Now hydrotropism, basically shown by a special type of plants known as mangroves. As an example, these plants live mainly in brackish and saltwater region. So these plants, the roots are moving towards the water, so hence this is an example for hydrotropism. And now coming on to thigmotropism, it is in response to a touch, mainly seen in climbing plants with tendrils. So these plants coil in response to touch stimuli. This is an example for thigmotrophic movement. Now coming on to the next type of movement called nastic movement or the non-directional movement. So these type of movement, they do not happen, these are not growth movements actually, whereas in the previous slides we have seen that they move, the root move downwards and the shoot move upwards. So this is a type of growth movement. Here growth is not happening, but because some changes is happening inside the cells of the plant and because of a stimuli. That is what is happening in this plant called touch me not. When you touch the plant, the leaf droops. So this is an example for nastic movement. Another example you can cite is, there is a plant called Venus flytrap. This plant captures insect. So when this plant captures insect, there is a movement happening. So that movement can be an example of nastic movement. Now how does growth happen in plants? So in plants, just like in humans, there are certain hormones which are secreted. So these hormones help in the growth of plants. So basically you have 5 types of plant hormones: auxins, gibberellins, cytokines, abscisic acid and ethylene. These are the 5 types of plant hormones. You don't have to remember all these names, just understand. So the auxins, what they do is they help in the cell division and growth of the plant. Gibberellins, they also help in the growth of stem and branches. Cytokine also help in the process of cell division. And abscisic acid, rather what does it do is it inhibits the growth. That is, you can see some seeds remain as such. Even if you sow the seed in the soil, sometimes it takes a long time. So this particular hormone is responsible for that. So it inhibits the growth. And now ethylene is mainly used in flowering plant to ripen and helps in flowering of the plant. Usually when the fruits are raw, the shopkeepers, they apply this particular hormone called ethylene, and because of the ethylene, the ripening happens very fast. So these are basically the 5 hormones and their function. No need to study in detail, just remember the coordination in plants happen, and the 2 ways in which it happen is the movement, and there are 2 types of movement: directional movement and non-directional movement. And also there are 5 different type of hormone. No need to remember the names even. So just understand phytohormones or the plant hormones together with the movements help in the coordination in plants. Now hormones and endocrine glands. So in the beginning we have seen the central nervous system and endocrine nervous system together performs the function of control and coordination. So endocrine glands, if we have to define endocrine glands, they are the glands without ducts, and they produce certain chemicals called hormones, and it is through the hormones that these function of coordination is regulated. So let us see about some important hormones and their functions. Now hormones, remember, they are chemicals synthesized by a specialized gland called endocrine glands, and they control certain activities in different parts of the body. That is what you have to remember about hormones. They are chemicals and they are synthesized by specialized glands called the endocrine glands. So some important hormones and glands. So the hypothalamus is located in the forebrain. So this hypothalamus is the link between your nervous system and endocrine system through pituitary gland. So what does it do is it stimulates the pituitary gland, and this hypothalamus also secretes some hormones, and it has some actions on some specific cells. We don't have to study about that, but hypothalamus is the link between the nervous system and the endocrine system, because all your life processes are interconnected. Now coming on to the pituitary gland, they are present very much near to the hypothalamus of the brain. So it controls, it secretes growth hormone and it controls the growth of your body. Now if the growth is not happening properly, then it causes dwarfism. So dwarfism is a condition associated with the decreased production of growth hormone by the pituitary gland. So remember, pituitary gland is also present in the hypothalamus, and also it produces various other hormones as well, but we have to study only about growth hormone now. So growth hormone controls growth and its deficiency can cause dwarfism. Now coming on to the thyroid gland has action almost on all parts of the body. So thyroid is present in front of the neck region. It is a butterfly shaped gland. Thyroid produces a hormone called thyroxine. So for the production of thyroxine, you require a chemical called iodine. So that is why we say take iodized salt. So for that purpose we require iodine for the production of thyroxine, and thyroxine basically controls the metabolic rate. Metabolic rate, when I mean it has action, just remember it has action all over your body. It has action on your skin, it has action on your hair, it has action on various other organs. So deficiency of thyroxine can cause a condition called goiter. Goiter is basically when your thyroid glands get enlarged. Normally you cannot feel for your thyroid gland, but when the thyroid gland is enlarged, you can clearly see a bulge in the front of your neck, and that is a condition called goiter, and it is very common in women compared to men. So remember, thyroid gland, thyroxine, and its deficiency, goiter. Coming on to adrenal glands. So adrenal glands are present above your kidney. So these glands are also called suprarenal gland. Supra means above. Supra means above, and renal is a term associated with kidney. So suprarenal gland is also adrenal gland. Adrenal gland produces many hormones, and the most important one which we have to study is adrenaline. So adrenaline is responsible for fight, flight and fright, 3F hormone we say. It is responsible, like when you see a snake, you either decide to fight it or you run away. So in these times adrenaline is secreted in your body and it increases your heartbeat. It also increases the blood supply and it has various other functions. For the sake of our understanding, we need to study that it is mainly responsible for fight, flight and fright, secreted by adrenal glands located above the kidney. Now pancreas. Pancreas is present behind your stomach. It produces a hormone called insulin. Insulin, what it does is it regulates your sugar level in the blood. So the most common condition associated with the deficiency of insulin is diabetes, which you all must be very familiar with. So diabetes is a condition. There are two other hormone also, one more hormone secreted from pancreas together with insulin. These two hormones control your blood sugar level. So when the deficiency of insulin can cause diabetes. Now coming on to the reproductive system. So in male reproductive system there is a hormone called testosterone, and in females the hormone is estrogen. So these are responsible for the secondary sexual characters. What are those characters? We will study in the coming chapter. So mainly it is associated with the production of production of sperms in male, and it is associated with the production of egg in females, and also certain secondary sexual character like change in voice in men, and also in females also there are certain changes happening at a time called puberty or the adolescent period. So the hormones responsible are testosterone and estrogen. Now coming on to pineal gland. Pineal gland is also present in the brain. So these pineal gland are responsible for the sleep-wake cycle or the internal biological clock. So it controls your sleep cycle. It produces a hormone called melatonin. So pineal gland in the brain secretes melatonin, controls the sleep-wake cycle. So these are the important hormones. The growth hormone secreted by the pituitary gland, it stimulates growth of organs. Thyroxine secreted by the thyroid gland, it regulates metabolism for body growth. Then insulin is secreted by the pancreas, it regulates the blood sugar level. Then testosterone by the testes and estrogen by the ovary, it is responsible for the development of male and female sexual organs. Now coming to adrenaline secreted by the adrenal glands, it is responsible for those three fight, flight and fright response of the body. And then releasing hormone is secreted by hypothalamus, it stimulates the pituitary gland to perform its function.